have this bucket of, they call it emergency food. I'm going to use that this summer for my adventures. There. Let's see, today I have some dinner here. Find something for dinner. Another breakfast. Creamy pasta and vegetables. Orange drink. Orange drink. Southwest rice and beans. Oh, that sounds good. Creamy pasta vegetables. Savory stroganoff. Savory stroganoff. Apple cinnamon cereal. Apple cinnamon syrup. Tomato. Southwest beans and rice. Tomato basil soup. Chicken flavored noodle soup. That's a good one. I'll tell you, when I did this last year, one of the things I learned, you need to cook it for just a little bit. You just can't boil it once and call it a day. You need to cook it for a couple minutes. This is a brand new little stove. I've not used it before, but I got it because I wanted to be able to cook stuff for longer than just heating it up in a jet boil. The jet boil is either full blast or no blast. I wanted something that I could cook for a while on. You can see that right there. Turn this off. So it's cooked for a little bit. Now you just put a lid on it and let it sit here and soak for a few minutes. So I've been waiting here about 10 minutes. I'd say it's okay. It's not rocking, but it's okay. The tides went out some. You can see people are out there about a half mile. So we're gonna walk all the way out there and see what's happening. So you can see, this is we'll call it a lure that we're using. It's actually a snagging hook. So we are down at Seward, and I'll call it the snaggery. It's legal to snag fish down here, and it's sockeye season right now. So everybody down here is going to be trying to snag sockeye salmon. It's going to be a cluster and a half. But it should be interesting. And realistically, in the terms of the hierarchy of fishermen, something that'll be a little bit interesting perhaps. In the hierarchy of fishermen, most certainly at the top of the hierarchy, you have fly fishermen, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that. Fly fishermen are the elite of the fishing world. And then after that are probably lure people who just use lures. And after that, there's bait people. And after people that use bait, then you probably have dip netters, maybe in Alaska, and they have big giant nets and try to capture fish in huge nets, and it's considered a sport in Alaska. And then you have people that use dynamite, throw it in a pond, and blow it up, and all the fish that go to the surface, you dip them out with a net. And at the very, very, very bottom of the hierarchy of fishermen are the snaggers. And so we're down here at the very bottom of the food chain in terms of fishermen to hopefully put some fish in the freezer. So we'll go out here and we'll see what happens. See, there's a big eagle out here. Looks like an immature eagle. Doesn't have his white head yet. Oh, he's pretty tall. We're probably about 20 yards right now. Oh, he's thinking about it. We'll give him a little more space. Oh, there he goes. First official cast of the season here. I see lots of sad faces on the bank. I hear, talking to folks, I hear that last week it was hot. The thing about salmon fishing is if you can get it when the run's in, and you do all right. If the run's not in, then there's no fish, and fishing's going to be lousy. And so it just depends on if there's fish. And what I hear is that a week ago it was good, but not so much anymore. Well, that's not good. I'll tell you, weight like that travels a long ways. One of the things I always do when I'm fishing like this is look up and down the bank and see if anybody else is catching anything, and if no one's catching anything, then it's going to be a slow day. It's looking kind of slow right now. Fish. Oh, we're on the board. There we go, on the board. Well, I spent a few hours. Let's look at the tide real quick. You can see people are way out there. Spent a few hours fishing, if you can call it fishing, trying to snag a fish. Snagged up one, and then I had one just for a moment, and then it got off. So I'm gonna go back to the truck, kick back, probably have some dinner, take a little nap. One sockeye hardly constitutes an adventure, I think, but it's an adventure just the same. This is a fishery that I've never done before, and I've never tried snagging before. I kind of I might be a little bit of a snob, and off to the next adventure. We got probably two more adventures coming up real shortly. I would like to make a trip out for kings. Actually, I have 2 king trips planned. And then another river should light up for sockeye here real quickly, but that's not a snaggery. That is a flossery. And so we'll be trying to floss fish. We'll talk about that one when that trip comes up. We'll go up here and warm up. My feet are freezing cold from standing out in the water all the time. Well, this is the first sockeye of the season. I'm gonna go ahead and fillet him up here. So the first cut I'm gonna make is I have the knife angled this way toward the head because there's a lot of meat in there. And the second cut is just gonna be about a 1/2 inch in against the spine down to the dorsal fin. The dorsal fin, I'm going to point it up over the mid backbone and then down. And it should come out right there about. And you can see I got part of that fin, and that's fine. And now I'm going to angle the blade toward the ribs and try to skin the meat right off of the ribs. Cut toward the head. Beautiful fillet there. Eggs, the female here. Should be 2, they call them skeins, 2 skeins of eggs here. Cut that off there. And all of this can go in a trash bag eventually. Let's go and get this rib meat cut off here. This was not a nice clean fillet like I would have hoped. There we go. That's ready for the bar there. There we go, done. So it's like 10 o'clock at night. It's still light outside. That was kind of a fun adventure. It was different than I had initially anticipated that it would be, though. I had initially thought that I was going to go down there and there was going to be a lot more fish in the river than there was. There wasn't a lot of fish. I guess people say, people there told me that a week ago it was smoking hot. And that's all. That's the thing about salmon fishing in Alaska, is it's all about the run timing. You're either there and there's a ton of fish in the river and you're just slaying them, or you can work really, really, really hard and hard to get anything. And I will say that years ago, there could be one fish in the river and I'd fish for days. And I'd get that one and try to find a friend for him. But I've kind of gotten, I'm going to say, lazy in my old age. If there's not fish in the river, I don't spend a lot of time fishing now. It was still a great adventure, though. I mean, adventures are all what you make of them. and I think that it was a really great trip. I haven't been to Seward in years and years, and Seward's an absolutely amazingly beautiful area. I should really spend more time there. I had lots of intentions of getting out early this morning and going in there and hitting it again, or going in late last night, but there were so few fish. And when I fished, the tide was just outgoing and starting to slack a little bit. And then high tide was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And then when I got up this morning and got ready to go, we were looking at a tide going out again. And really, realistically, the best tide, usually it seems like for fishing for salmon, is the incoming tide. And I kept looking out my truck. I slept in the back of my truck, and I'll show that to you in a little bit here. I have a setup in the back of my truck so I can sleep in it easy. And my intent was to go back down, but I kept looking as people were coming off the bank, and if people would have came off the bank with a ton of fish, then, you know, it would have been time to get back in the river. But everybody that came off the river didn't have any fish. And so it didn't look like things had improved any, and so I really didn't see a point in going back down. And so even this morning, early when I got up, I was up by about 4 o'clock before the sun got up, and there wasn't really anybody left there. But I just didn't see the point in going down there. And so I got an early start. I've been on the road probably an hour and a half or so. I just woke up, got in my truck and started driving, and thought I'll wait till the sun comes up and it's a little bit warmer, because it is a bit chilly. You can see there's still snow on the mountains behind me, and we're in a mountain pass right now. It's still a bit chilly, and so I wanted to, you know, get some miles down so I was closer to home. I wanted to get somewhere that was warm to stop and have breakfast and coffee. I'm really looking forward to a cup of coffee. So my plan is, I got my jet boil going here, and I could get my other burner going out, the one I used yesterday, but there's no point in running two. So I'm going to, when this starts boiling, I'll dump some water in here, I'll put some water back in here, I'll heat it back up, put coffee in here, let the coffee sit. By the time breakfast is done, coffee will be done. It'll be magical. And I'm using, so this is, I cut it upside down so you can't see it. This is, I'll show you upside down, how's that? This is Readywise brown sugar maple multigrain. It's a lot like oatmeal, but it's in my packet. My goal this summer, so I bought that pack, that big box. I bought that big box of emergency meals, and here's my emergency. My emergency is I'm going to be really lazy this summer, and instead of setting up an elaborate camp and things like that, which I did last summer I set up a wall tent, and it was glorious. But this summer I want to stay more nimble and go from place to place and this and that. And I may take a tent along. I have an annual trip I do where I float down, camp on the side of the river, salmon fish, and then pull up camp and float down the next morning. And then I've done it probably 3 years in a row, and I absolutely love that trip. Well, I've always caught fish on the trip, but even if you didn't catch fish on that trip, it'd be a trip worth doing. It's just glorious. And so I may try to do that one this summer. We'll kind of see how things go. That river hasn't heated up yet. The fishery we just did, I call it the snaggery. The snaggery we just did is really one of the first salmon runs that come into the state, or at least come into the Anchorage area that's within driving distance of Anchorage. And so if I would have went a week earlier, I probably would have slayed them. I don't really want that many fish. I'd like to catch about 25 salmon this summer. 25 sockeye will yield about 100 pounds. An average sockeye yields about 4 pounds of fillets off of it. And that kind of sort of makes sense. They say that on fish, when you fillet fish off, the fillet itself is only 40 to 50% the weight of the fish. And so if you catch an 8-pound fish, you're going to get a little bit less than 4 pounds of flesh off of it. And that makes sense. I know there's been years where we've caught lots and lots and lots of fish and kept track of how many we caught and then weighed when we were done, and it averages about 4 pounds of fish. I mean, there's small ones and there's big ones, but that's going to be about the average. And so I really only want to put up about 100 pounds of sockeye this summer, and that's 25 fish then. And so I caught one fish, one lonely little fish sitting in my cooler all by himself. So I got 24 left to go. Let's see. Oh, you know, would you believe that that's boiling? Yeah, that's boiling there. It doesn't take long. Right, get that happening. Replenish some water in there. Empty that out. So we have two varieties of coffee. I have one this last winter for winter camping. I got this. They suckered me into it with the name, the Outhouse Blend. And that showed up in a couple of my winter camping videos. It was fun. It's okay coffee. They suckered me in with the name. I mean, who would buy that, right? Or I could go with my standard emergency coffee. I think for today we're going to do the emergency coffee. At some point in time, I'm just going to dump them all into one bucket. But it won't be today. Oh, it's getting ready to go again. No. Oh, it's boiling and it didn't boil over that time. Nice. So this is a French press, if you're not familiar with French presses. You put the coffee in there, you stir it up, and then this goes in there and it's a screen on there. And so you put this in there and after 10 minutes you squish it down and it pushes the coffee ground to the bottom and you have coffee on the top. Years ago I had a buddy that used to come up every year, and he was a connoisseur of coffee, and he would stir it just a certain way and make sure that it got a little bit of foam on the top of it when he stirred it. It was fun to watch him make coffee, but he also made awesome coffee. I have my dishwasher here. You know, that's so clean. I'm going to put that back in the clean bag. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes here. Get this out of the way so we have more sun here. Goodness. You don't want to go too fast, otherwise it'll go around the screen, the grounds will. So you want to go slow enough to keep the grounds at the bottom. On the way here this morning, I took some really, I think they turned out some pretty nice pictures. And I'll drop those in at the very, very end of this. And then just while we were waiting for this, I went and took a couple pictures. I'll see if they turn out. If they turn out, I will drop those in as well at the very end of this video. And so, I don't know if you can see this or not, that's what it ends up looking like. It looks a lot like oatmeal. And the coffee is going to be smoking hot because, you know, it was boiling just a second ago. So I got to let that wait. I got the lid off of it right now so that it will cool a little bit faster because I can't wait to get into that. So we're going to have a little breakfast here. And then we'll get back on the road. Probably like anywhere, the state of Alaska has so much beauty. There's so much land. You can drive for hours and hours and hours. But you go by places that are just amazing. You can see behind me here the snow-capped mountains. It's almost middle of June now,
and we still have snow in the upper reaches of a lot of this. This winter, though, right where we're sitting right now, there was probably 8 feet of snow would be my guess. I wasn't up here during that time, but I know last year they said we had a record snowfall and they were claiming they were 10 or 12 feet here. I think this year was more average. We had about 8 feet of snow. So the top of those mountains, you know, some of it probably got drifted in where it was really, really deep, and then some of it was probably even bare, blown off during the wintertime. And so what we're looking at right now are the shaded areas, the areas that are semi-shaded, that don't get as much direct sunlight. And some of it were areas where the snow was probably stacked up really, really deep. It's about 6 a.m. right now. It never really got all the way dark last night. We're approaching the solstice, the summer solstice, which means the day with the longest amount of light. And on that day, it will not get dark all the way. It'll get very dark, kind of like dusky, but it will not get pitch black. And last night it wasn't pitch black. It's 6 a.m. now, and I know when I was up at midnight or 1 o'clock, it was still light enough you could see without a flashlight. That's good enough for now. I will wash this when I get it home and get it all cleaned up and put it back in here so that the next adventure I can just take my, oh, this is my, I should have said something about that. This is my cooking tote. And so everything that I have that I need for cooking, it's in my cooking tote here. And so when I get ready to adventure, I can just grab my cooking tote and go. My wintertime and my summertime, it's the exact same tote that I use in the wintertime, but I stock it a slight bit different. Not a whole lot different, but there's a few different things in here. And some things that I take out, I generally have a fire starter kit in the wintertime so that if you ever get, you know, boogered up somewhere, can't get out of somewhere, something goofy happens, you always have to be able to start a fire. In the summertime, not so much, so I take that out. It takes up, you know, the kit itself is about this big, and it's got different kinds of fire starter in it and different things to get fire going and whatnot. And during the summer, it just takes up space and I don't need it. Well, I'm going to finish my coffee here, pack up my stuff. I'll give you a quick tour of the back of my truck, and then I'm going to hit the road. I do really appreciate you guys, as always, watching, stopping in to see what's happening here. All right, about time to go. I did rinse my jet boil out, so there's not coffee grounds in it now. So that's already been done. And so this goes in the bottom. And that goes in there. You can see that. And then the French press screen. That, and you can see there's enough room left there actually for a small fuel canister. I like to buy the large fuel canisters just because I'm not backpacking. I do have small ones in case I do backpack, but for this it's a lot more economical just have the big ones, so I just use the big ones and leave space in there. And so we're going to get moving here, and like I said earlier, I'll give you a quick tour at the back of my truck. Not that it's anything special, but I know lots of times when I see people doing things, I always wonder, so how are you doing that anyway? What's that about? Do you have any ideas I can steal so that it'll make my life a little easier? So I'll give you a quick tour of that, and then we're gonna hit the road. All right, there's Hotel Silverado right there. Cooler with fish in it. Chair up in front in case I need that. I have 5-gallon buckets that I use to carry fish in. My food, cot, sleeping pad, sleeping bag, and pillow. And then one of the nice things about this cot is that you can stick everything under it, so you can store a lot of stuff under it and then still have a little bit of walkway. But I'll tell you, there's not a lot of headspace. Take care and good luck fishing.